we have had somebody kind of writing the script for us for so long that if you really want to show up authentically in your business, you have to write your own script. You have to write your own story. And part of that does come with age, and part of that does come with experience. But the reason why you're feeling that self doubt is that disconnection from self. That is, to me, the definition of lack of confidence, of self doubt, is when you truly don't know who you are.
Welcome to the Rebel Energy Podcast with me, your host, Jade Ellsbury. I'm a corporate dropout and multiple six-figure online business owner. My mission is to help you get out of the 9-to-5 mindset and create a new narrative for moms working from home to gain more freedom, more income, and living your dream life by cultivating your own rebel energy. So grab a glass of wine, get comfy, and let's dig in. Hi, everybody. Welcome, Rebels. I'm so excited. We have Angela Masciulli with us today. She is a business, Reiki, and confidence coach. I have also been on her podcast before, and I just found so much value in what she teaches and she talks about. So I knew that we had to share all of her expertise in today's podcast. So, hi, Angela. Do you want to share a little bit about
Hi,
your
Jade. Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. I loved our conversation. I'm excited to continue the conversation. Um, so yeah, a little bit about how I got started. I'll try to give you the short cliff notes. Is I started a business, a travel business in 2020 in the midst of the pandemic. Crazy. But I had moms reaching out who were just like, how did you do this? Like, who do you think you are? And I was just like, it's not hard. Starting a business, that those things aren't hard. What's hard is all the mental drama that we have. So, trying to coach other moms who didn't feel good enough, I started walking them through the process and helping them kind of see that starting a business is easy. It's just really kind of getting out of our own head and getting out of our own way. That's the hard part. So I started doing that, and then, it's evolved into confidence coaching, and then I recently added a Reiki practitioner to my portfolio of tools that I add to clients. So, yeah.
I love that. And what were you doing before you decided to do this during the pandemic?
Yeah, well, I had this like come to Jesus moment where my daughters were serious dancers, and the work schedule that I had, even though I was a consultant, it wouldn't, it just didn't fit what they needed from me anymore. So I had to have this moment where I had to step away from my legal career and reevaluate, find a new identity because my identity was so tied to my work and the approval and the things that I achieved. And so I had to figure all of that out for myself and go, okay, what's really important to me? My family was cracking because I was working all of the time. And I had to figure that out. And so I wanted to focus more on travel and having fun and us spending more time as a family. And so I had been the go to travel expert for so many friends for a long time. And I just kind of listened to a friend who was like, you need to do this. You need to start this as a business. So I did that. And so that was the moment where I really had to reevaluate things because they just were not working for me or my family.
Yeah, I hear that all the time with women. And that was the good thing about the pandemic. I know there was a lot of bad things, but a positive that I got to see, especially with pivoting into being a VA coach, is it gave everyone a lot of time. And I think too, we were in that mindset of like, the world is ending. And so a lot
Right.
of people, at least that I saw, they were reevaluating their life or they, thought their job was secure, and a lot of people were fired, they were let go and different things like that. But especially for, I think, moms as well of like, wanting to
really just I guess the biggest thing is the time piece, right? Like, time is short, time is valuable, and I think
Mhm.
obviously as moms, we want to spend as much time with our babies as possible, and it sounds like your kids are older.
Yeah.
My oldest is gonna be 11, and I'm already, like, crying. Today, he looked like a high schooler. I'm like, "How did that happen? When did it
My
happen?"
oldest graduates this year. It's seriously tough.
Yeah, and I'm sure looking back, you're like, "Okay, I'm really glad I made that shift when I did," especially, yeah, with my kids. Like, when I started this, my boys were a toddler and the
Mhm.
youngest was a newborn, and so looking, I'm like, "Wow, I've gotten almost the last 7 years just
Mhm.
soaking up all that time with them." So I think that's a really important message as well too, and even you saying starting a business is not hard. It really isn't, and you touched on that so well of it's the mindset and the doubt and the fear that creeps in. So,
Mhm.
let's dive into that because I know there's a lot of
Yeah.
women listening right now that are like, "This is me." So, what are
Mhm.
the biggest things that you see women struggling with when they're trying
Yeah.
to let's just start from the beginning, just starting a business?
Yeah, I think that, there are a couple of things. Women always think that there is going to be this magical perfect time. There is no magical perfect time. You have to decide that this is what you're doing and this is what you're going to be committed to. And it's really hard not having that external quote unquote boss to keep you to deadline. So you really have to find that inner boss for yourself and keep yourself accountable or find a way to keep yourself accountable. But then just the perfectionism and the self doubt, they're just so huge. And when we start businesses, we cannot run from all of those things that are just kind of holding us back if we want our business to flourish. And we are so preconditioned to overfunction, to people please, to kind of like compare ourselves to everybody else, especially in the age of social media,
Mhm.
where we get so disconnected from who we are and what we really want and what's going to make us happy and what we really need to be doing authentically in our businesses, that those things just sidetrack women so much.
Yeah.
So I'm just over here going, woohoo, been
Well,
there, done that. Come back over here.
yeah, and I will say, looking at myself the last 5 years, that was me. I'm like, I have to have this perfect routine and, uh,
Mhm.
just getting up early and, getting the workout in. 'Cause in my mind as an entrepreneur, I'm like, I have to look a certain way and I have to be a certain way. And, over the last 5 years, not saying that there was no clients that I enjoyed when I first started, but I think I've really dialed in more so
Mhm.
my ideal client. And I think that's because now I show up more as my authentic self, and I don't know if it's because it's age, I don't know if it's because 'cause I've done the mindset work, but I am a lot more laid back, and I
Yeah.
have to because I was a perfectionist as well too, and so now I'm like progress over perfection. The post doesn't have to be perfect. I don't have to look perfect to show up a certain way in my business. So
Mhm.
what are some things that, if a woman comes to you and they're like struggling just to maybe show their face? Because I always hear, I'm an introvert. I can't show up. So what does that
Mm.
look like? What is the tips or the strategies that you give them to, kind of just quit labeling themselves as a certain way, help them really do that self-discovery?
Yeah, we do an assessment of where your roadblocks are. And it's so interesting to see it all stems from our childhood. It all stems from the person who bullied us in middle school, or the little things that our parents told us, or something we saw online that we're comparing ourselves to. And we have had somebody kind of writing the script for us for so long that if you really want to show up authentically in your business, you have to write your own script. You have to write your own story. And part of that does come with age, and part of that does come with experience. But the reason why you're feeling that self doubt is that disconnection from self. That is, to me, the definition of lack of confidence, of self doubt, is when you truly don't know who you are. So we go through a self assessment, like what it is, we break it down because it's usually not just introvert or I'm shy.
Uh,
There's somebody told you something. Something happened to you and that you're just co-signing and continuing to believe. And 99% of the time, it's just completely untrue.
yeah. No, I love that. And it's so funny too. I used to get in trouble all the time for talking all the time.
Mhm.
And now I'm like, I've made a business out of that. I have a podcast, and
Right.
those things, that we got teased about when we were younger, a lot of
Mhm.
times those are our superpowers.
Mhm.
I was just recently diagnosed last year with ADHD.
Mhm.
This makes so much sense. And so as I'm talking with my therapist, she's like, that's probably why you're so successful because you just have to keep, going and going and your mind's constantly running and all of that. I'm like, "Oh, that's awesome." So I think for
Mhm.
me, along the entrepreneurship journey, like just really understanding why I am the way I am and just always continuously growing, but not striving
Mhm.
obviously to be perfect.
Mhm.
'Cause no one's perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, no, actually, there are like four main self doubt traps that if you want to talk about them, we can, because it's really interesting. Like, what are some of the signs that kind of exhibit themselves? Because everybody's got a little different thing. Do you want
Yeah.
me to go over them really quick?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so one of them is hesitation. How many times do we say, like, I'm going to start the podcast, I'm going to do the live? And so, what that can really look like is, um, you're just really triggered by uncertainty. And as an entrepreneur, we have to get comfortable with the uncertainty, right?
Yeah.
So that can look like overthinking, that perfectionism. So we really dive into like what your story is behind that, and we make a plan to start getting around that and put something out there until you can mold it to be perfect. And you find those little things that you can do, just like throw your website out there. You're always going to change things. You're always going to do, you know, I'm never going to change my intro, but I'm sure if I listen to it now after like 140 episodes, I would completely cringe. But
Yeah.
you have to learn how to do little things to get over that. And then, doubt trap number two is hiding. So you're really triggered by the fear of others' opinions of you, and you have a lot of overwhelm. So this looks like avoiding and procrastinating, and you play it small, right? How
Yeah.
many of us play it small? So you can focus on things like big dreams, but you feel really paralyzed to do anything about it. So we identify what you're afraid of and try to minimize that fear because, usually, like I said, it's really just not true. We listen to these stories in our head and everything we think is not true.
Yeah.
Right? And we tend to just like co-sign it and believe like that little biological voice in our head that is triggered by whatever fear. Like your brain doesn't know the difference between doing an Instagram live and being chased by a woolly mammoth.
Yeah.
Like it's like you literally think you're going to die, but you're not.
Yeah.
So if you find yourself hiding and procrastinating, really ask yourself some questions on what that's really about. Um, so we talk about ways to identify all the avoidance things that you do. Number three is if you're super hypercritical. How many people listening are really hypercritical? Like, we women are terrible at this. And Some of the signs are like when you're hypercritical of other people, that's a hallmark of somebody who's really critical of themselves. And
Mhm.
so you can argue against yourself. You can be self-critical, of course, but also complaining a lot. That's a hallmark of somebody who is really critical. And so we what are the excuses that you have that lead you to just be hypercritical all the time? And what are some of the negative outcomes that you believe are going to go happen? Like, what is that all about? And doubt number 4 is helplessness. How many of us have that victim mentality? I know I used to. I used to think everything was happening to me and gave away my power
Yep.
until I decided, hello, I can make my own opportunities. I mean, I was a military spouse and I would go for an interview and I wouldn't get hired because they saw I move so much.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I would just be like, "Nobody's hiring me. I'm not good enough." No, it's just that I needed to empower myself, and I did. I started my own business, years before I started my travel agency. So, it's just really triggered by that self-worth, that insecurity, and, this helplessness and a fear of success, right?
Yeah, like, you want it, but you're also
Success
afraid of it.
is scary, and we
Yeah.
don't talk about that.
Yep.
So, you might say things to yourself like nothing ever goes right, never goes your way. You have lots of excuses and you just really are unwilling to be vulnerable and put yourself out there. And so I have a process that we go through that and we have a whole self-assessment that gives you, an idea of what are really your triggers and what is at the heart of your self-doubt.
Yeah. And as you're talking too, I'm like, okay, like the hypercritical, I'm assuming because that one really resonated with me. That was definitely me. If I wasn't first, right? I felt like I was
Yeah,
um but growing up, like that's a lot of times, how I felt my parents were as well.
yeah,
So I'm assuming that's a great one that probably stems from your environment as a child.
yeah, yeah. If you had a really strict parent who expected you to have straight A's all the time and be perfect, and it's really hard to overcome that. And what's really hard at the heart of that as we get older is we look externally for validation.
Mhm.
And so that is a really difficult place to be and really feel happiness and fulfillment and just really show up authentically because you're looking for everybody else to give you that validation you need to go
Mhm.
forward. And you have to find that within yourself.
Yeah. Nope, I resonate with that one so, so much.
Online service providers, are you ready for 10K months? Over the past 5 years, I have helped 1,000 women not only start their VA businesses, but also scale to consistent 10K plus months. Whether it's OBMs, SMMs, VA agencies, myself and my team of coaches can help you dream bigger and achieve more. If you're needing a one-on-one coaching program customized to help you scale sustainably, send me a DM at Rebel Energy Coaching on Instagram saying scale.
So
Yeah.
I know you just added Reiki to
Yeah.
your title as well too. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not 100% familiar with what that is. I've heard of it,
Yeah.
and I even thinking back, I'm like, I feel like over the years, I've definitely had a Reiki coach come and talk, but I don't remember. So do you wanna dive
Yeah.
and talk a little bit about what that is specifically?
Right. Yeah. So Reiki is an energy healing modality. It is gentle, it's non-invasive, it is in the neighborhood of acupuncture or yoga. even.
Okay.
And so I only do distance Reiki sessions. You can even do that. You don't even have to do it with like sometimes massage therapists are also Reiki practitioners.
Mhm.
You can do person to person, but you can also do distance, which people are really surprised by. But it's all based on this principle that everything has energy. We
Mhm.
all have a biosphere of energy that emanates feet from our bodies. I mean, have you ever walked in a room when somebody, right after they've had a difficult conversation or an argument? Have you ever met somebody that you just didn't like because, they just gave you weird vibes?
Mhm.
That's all energy. Right now, you and I are exchanging energy. Like I'm showing up with a certain energy, you're showing up with a certain energy. And we get so caught up in the physical world, but everything has energy. My desk, this computer, my car, my animals, my children, everything has energy.
Mhm.
And so we have various experiences throughout the day that changes that energy. We have interactions with other people that changes that energy. We have experiences that might get stuck or change our energy. And so this is a way to go into each of our energy centers, which are called chakras,
Mhm.
and heal that and help elevate it. Because when we elevate and we're intentional about our energy, it's amazing what happens. We attract the right clients. We feel better. We feel more fulfilled. Our intuition goes up. We feel healthier. We have more energy ourselves. Um, so yeah, it's just been really amazing.
I love that, especially with all the things going on right now in my life. A baby, a move, I'm like,
Yeah.
and I kinda had to do, like, a self-check as well too, of, like, I just feel like I have this negative energy around me because of the stress and not only that too, but, like, the emotions, right, of moving and leaving a neighborhood that we loved and, all those
Mhm.
different things as well too, so definitely gonna have to
Yeah.
work on that.
Yeah, that's a lot of life happening.
Yeah.
And yeah, every physical place has energy. We can have energy cords to people, to places, to things. It's so fascinating. I was a little out there. I don't know how much your listeners are like open minded to this, but we can have energy situations that we even need to heal from past lives.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I've done a session, it's been years ago now. Um, I can't you would probably know. I had my eyes closed and she would say
Like
different
past life regression,
yeah, something
I
like
think?
that. And, oh, it was the coolest experience. I have the recording somewhere. Um, but yeah, it was like the past life. It was like before I was born. It was super creepy, but in a good way.
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't I'm definitely of the belief that we have multiple lives. And so, for instance, one way that past life can impact your current life is I heard a story about somebody who had money issues where every time, like, let's say they received $100,
Mhm,
a bill would come out of the blue for $100. So
mhm.
every extra money they had, was immediately met with an obligation that they needed to, it just went right out as soon as it came in. So they were never able to save and get ahead. Well, through past life regression, they were able to find out they were a monk and took a vow of poverty. And so
So creepy.
yes. So I'm getting the chills. They were able to heal that and move past that. And now those money issues aren't affecting their current life.
Oh my gosh, that's so awesome.
Right.
So, I mean, we've got a couple of minutes. I'm intrigued by this. What does that session look like, or what does that entail?
Yeah. Yeah. So what's really important about a Reiki session is that coming to with an intention, which is super powerful. Like, what is it that you want to heal or move forward from in your life? And so we set those intentions, and it's kind of like I'm in a meditative state. I've had attunements that have opened me up to Reiki is I make myself a vessel for universal energy. So
Mhm.
I receive it. I'm not using my energy. And I use that and go into the chakras virtually. And various things come up. I've always had a lot of spiritual gifts and been highly intuitive my whole life. And so we just talk about that, and we can even work on physical ailments. Like I had a client who came to me with a rib situation. And during the Reiki session, I was like, oh no, you have an energetic cord in your back at your waistline. Like I can see it, I can sense it. We removed it. She's feeling better.
Oh my god, I
So
didn't even know this was even a thing.
yes. So she's feeling better. She and then I also added to it, I do an angel card reading at the end if a
Mhm.
client is open to that. And my last client I did it to, she like her face when I showed her the cards that I got,
Mhm.
I thought, is she finding this like silly or something? But no, they resonated so much with her with things that she had not told me. She was just like blown away.
So is the angel card, is that similar to, like, angel numbers?
No, they're like oracle
Okay.
cards, I guess, with like a message.
Okay.
And so they just spoke to her specifically on 3 different issues that were going on in her life,
Mhm.
and I had no idea about them. And yeah, so she found them very helpful in kind of giving her a message she needed to move forward.
Yeah. I love that so much. Honestly, now we're talking, I'm like, I think you need to come be a guest speaker with Rebel Energy Academy clients because, I
Yeah.
think it's one thing as a coach too, which I know you're also, right, a business and a confidence coach.
Yeah.
Um, but and I'm sure you've seen this where, we bring someone in and we see so much potential and we're so excited to work with them. And there's even a woman right now, she's like, "I spent all this money," and she never really got past the very first step that we teach. And, we're checking in and we even gave her, like, a couple of, like, extra weeks to just, like, clear her mind, and, we cover mindset, but I think that
Mhm.
there's just some of those clients where
Mhm.
and I don't know if it's, again, maybe the mindset, like the self-sabotage, right? Where, like, they just can't
Oh, yeah.
show up, and
Yeah.
or they're afraid of their own success, and
Yeah.
we feel like we've done everything on our end
Mhm.
that we can do to try to push them forward. And so, I think that's one of the really frustrating things as a coach where it's just you can't help someone more if they won't help themselves. And,
Sure.
you're in
Yeah.
your mind, you're like, "Why aren't they just doing it? Why aren't they just
Yeah.
doing the market research? Why are they not
Yeah.
showing up for themselves?"
Right. Right. And that's the fascinating thing too about Reiki is what I really love if I'm working with somebody who have trauma in their background or something like that, I didn't want to have to refer them to somebody else
Yeah.
because Reiki, I even have emotional and mental kind of symbols that I can use to help somebody during a session, but
Mhm.
you don't even need to know what it is that's holding you up. The Reiki energy knows where to go. And that's what during sessions, people can just have an emotional release from that stuck energy,
Mhm.
from whatever they've been through. Like I heard a story of somebody who um, it was a Reiki practitioner who her husband had been through a difficult situation at work and felt like he hadn't been able to like voice his opinion. He just stayed quiet, even though he was really upset.
Mhm.
Well, that night she was kind of called to do Reiki on him, and she saw like this black sludge kind of like come out of his mouth from Reiki because it was like this stuck negative energy that he didn't express.
Yeah.
So think of how many times in your life you've not expressed. your emotions. You haven't somebody said something to you that negatively impacted you.
Mhm.
And we're just not brought up to do anything about that or know how it impacts us. So
Yeah.
we can have releases in a Reiki session that we're not even sure where it comes from, but it's just moving that stuck negative energy out of us so we can realize our potential.
Yeah, and even as business owners as well too. Maybe,
Yeah.
if you have a client that's wronged you or
Yeah.
not paid you after you've done the work
Right.
or, not respected your boundaries. Oh, I would hate to see how much black sludge is inside of me after the last 5 years of just business, right?
Right.
So, oh, that's so awesome, Angela. So, what would you say, like, if you could give one final piece of advice to anyone right now that is just really struggling in their business with that
Mhm.
confidence piece?
Yeah. I think my biggest piece of advice is to take radical responsibility and get really curious.
Mhm,
Why whatever situation is happening and think about your participation in that experience.
mhm,
Like we all have, no matter what experience we're in, positive or negative, we have a role in that experience. And so getting really curious about that, I mean, that's helped me recover from childhood trauma, just being curious. Like, why is this person giving me this reaction? Oh, because she's treating me like my mother did. And even though she's passed away, I have never dealt with a lifetime of criticism and manipulation. I mean, that was just one of the things that I had to deal with. But me getting curious on why, we had a really negative, crazy coach in our life who just made me like feel like I was six again.
yeah. Oh
And I'm
gosh.
like, why is this happening?
Yeah.
And getting curious led me on this entire path of healing that in my life.
Oh, I love that. And yeah, I think there's so many people out there. I mean, you see the memes on Facebook, right? Where it's don't use your childhood or like your past trauma to like hurt other people or to stay in that victim mentality. Like you're a grown
Yeah.
adult and take like responsibility with that healing. And I've done years of therapy for a lot of those things of
Yeah.
why, in my 20s, like why was I so angry all the time? Or, you know, even like constructive criticism. I'd always get very defensive.
Mhm.
Well, it's because again, childhood, my parents were very critical. They were expecting, you know, perfection and things like that as well. So I love just approaching it from a place of curiosity to really
Mhm.
understand other people. I think is so important, especially in this online space where you can work with people from all over, different
Mhm.
countries, different backgrounds. Um, yeah, I just think that level of understanding is so important as a business owner for sure.
And not judging yourself about your reactions. That's another important piece.
Mhm.
Like, we weren't, especially as children, we weren't in control. Our parents were probably doing the best that they knew how.
Yeah.
And so, not having a lot of judgment around it either, but just really taking that action to be in control of your future.
Yeah.
It's all about.
Yeah, I love that so, so much, Angela. Thank you so much for today. How can people connect with you and touch base about your offer?
Yeah, yeah. Go check me out at mombusinesscoach.com and you can see all about, the various things that I have going on. It changes from time to time. So that's the best place to connect with me. And you can see all my socials and all the good stuff there.
Yay, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Angela, for your time today.
Yeah, thanks, Jade. My
All right.
pleasure.